boys and girls. Today we are doing lesson 7.6. And so lesson 7.6 is on fraction multiplication. And we are on page 327. And we're going to start off by writing our objective, looking at the essential question. What is this lesson about? What are we going to be learning today? So today, the essential question is, how do you multiply fractions? And I kind of went over with this yesterday. So our objective, go ahead and write this. You should be writing this in your notebook, taking notes. So our objective is we will multiply fractions. Multiply fractions. Very short objective today. So we will be multiplying fractions. And so we've been doing that since the beginning, but we've been doing it different ways. We have been using the model. And so let's go ahead and get started. I will be doing a little bit of that again, but we're going to go a little deeper. We will be doing it with paper, and we'll be using a model as well. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started by going over the unlock the problem. Sasha has 3/5 of a scarf left to knit. Ooh, who likes knitting? If she finishes 1/2 of that today, how much of the scarf will Sasha knit today? So we want to know, and so remember that we want to always follow the steps when we're reading a problem, word problem. We want to circle the important information. So here we're going to read it again. Sasha has 3/5 of a scarf. Okay, so that's important information that we're going to use. And then it says if she finishes 1/2 of it today. And now we're going to underline the question. What is it that we're trying to find out? So we want to know how much of the scarf will Sasha knit today. That's what we want to know. How much will she be knitting today? Okay, so here's our problem. We are going to multiply. And the reason why we're multiplying is because if you notice here, she 3/5 is what she has left, right? She finished 1/2 of that today. So she finished 1/2 of 3/5. And remember that every time we see the word of, that means we are multiplying. So 1/2 of 3/5 means we're going to multiply. So we're going to do it the first way, which is using a model. Okay. We're going to use a model. And then the second way we're going to do this is that we're going to just use regular multiplication. But before we do that, let's look at the questions that we have here. How much of the scarf does Sasha have left to knit? So for that, we want to go back to the question. And it says that Sasha has 3/5 of a scarf left to knit. So here we're going to write 3/5. That's what she has left to knit, right? 3/5. And then it says, of the fraction that is left, how much will she finish today? And we can see that in the problem in the next sentence. If she finishes 1/2 of that today, right, how much will she finish today? So that would be 1/2. And so the purpose of these questions here on the side is so that you analyze each word problem sentence by sentence, and you understand what is the problem asking you and what information is being given to you. All right, let's go ahead and move on. We're going to do this one way, which is by using a model. And so when we do a model, we will first represent in our model 3/5, right? And then we're going to shade 3/5 of the model. And so here we have our model. This is a quick review. Okay, and remember that I said in one side you will represent one fraction. In this case, we're representing 3/5 going down in columns. These are columns. When it's going from the top to the bottom, those are called columns. When it's going sideways, okay, like this, that we call rows. So in this case, we have here in the model that they already kind of created for us, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 columns. So that tells me that that's why I'm representing 3/5 here, because it's our model has been sectioned into 5 pieces, and that is what represents our denominator. So we have 5 sections. So that's because we have a 5 in our denominator. Now we're going to shade 3 out of those 5 pieces. Okay, our numerator, tells us how many we're going to shade. So I'm going to go ahead and get my highlighter, and I'm going to shade 3 out of those 5 columns. Here we go with 1, 2, 3. And so I have shaded, and I didn't shade that very well, so I'm going to shade it again. Okay, so I have shaded 3 out of 5 columns. So I completed my first step right here. Now we're going to draw a horizontal line across the rectangle to show 2 equal parts. Why am I showing 2 equal parts? Think about it. Why am I showing 2? Why do I want to draw a line here to show 2 equal parts? Okay, so the reason is equal. Well, that doesn't look that equal, right? It's a little crooked, but it's okay. You get the point. I could do undo, but let's see. Let's redo that so it looks a little bit more centered. Okay. So I drew a line, horizontal line. So now I have 2 rows, right? 1, 2 rows. And I showed 2 equal parts. And the reason why is because if I model 3/5 going in columns, I'm going to model a half on the opposite side. So my denominator tells me how I'm cutting my model, how many pieces, how many parts will I have. So in this case, my denominator is 2. That's why I want 2 equal parts. And now I'm going to shade a half of the section. Let's see. So I'm going to shade from my rows 1 out of 2 because that's a half. I'm only going to shade 1 out of those 2. So I'm going to pick a different color to shade. Let's use the blue. And I'm only going to shade 1 of the 2. There you go. Okay, so I have drawn the line to show a half. I have shaded 1 out of the 2 to show a half. Now we're going to count the sections that are shaded 2 times. Okay, so the parts, the squares that are shaded twice. And so here you could see that the parts that are shaded twice, I'm going to use a different color, would be this square, 1, this square, 2, and this square, right? So it's 3 squares that are shaded twice. See, these 2 on the side, it's only shaded once by the blue. And these 3 here, yellow ones, are only shaded once. The ones that are shaded twice are these 3. So that's going to be my numerator, 3, because I have 3 squares that are shaded twice. Now for my denominator, will be the total amount of squares that I have in my model all together. So I will count all the squares. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So my denominator is equal to 10. So here in our text, it says, count the sections that are shaded twice. We did that. That would be 3. And write a fraction for the parts of the whole that are shaded twice. So I'm saying 3 out of 10 squares are shaded twice. Now here it says, compare the numerator and denominator of the product with the numerators and denominator of the factors. Describe what you notice. So why don't you go ahead and do that? Write it in your notebook. Compare 3/10 to our factors, which is a half and 3/5. What do you notice? I want you to describe it and write it on your books. And I will ask you to complete this question on the next slide. Okay. So make sure that you write it right now. Pause it, and then once you answer the question on the next slide, you'll just copy your response that you wrote in here. Okay, let's go ahead and move on. Okay, so now we're going to do this a different way. Okay, now we're going to multiply fractions without using the model. So remember, when we're multiplying fractions, we will multiply the numerator, okay, times the numerator, and then we will multiply the denominator by the denominator. Okay, so here we have we're going to multiply the numerator 1 times 3, okay, 1 times 3, and we will multiply 2 times 5. And so 1 times 3 is equal to 3, and 2 times 5 is equal to 10. And I need to check that if it's in its simplest form. So I will also be teaching you in a bit how to cross simplify, but I will show you in a bit. So 3/10, it's already in its lowest terms because in simplest form, because I cannot divide the numerator and the denominator by the same number. So Sasha will knit 3/10 of the scarf today. Okay. All right, let's go ahead and look at another example. We're going to multiply 4 times 5/12, and we're going to write the product in simplest form. So in this case, we have 4, a whole number, times 5/12. Now, we already had a lesson where we had a whole number. So remember that we have to write the whole number as a fraction. We have to have two fractions. We cannot have a whole number and a fraction. It's kind of like you got to have either all apples or all oranges. You cannot mix oranges and apples. So in this case, what I'm saying is that you cannot just leave this as a whole number. We need to write it as a fraction. And you know that every whole number, if you want to write it as a fraction, all you got to do is write a 1 in the denominator. So that will be 4 ones times 5/12. So we write the whole number as a fraction. Then our next step is to do just what we did previously. We will multiply the numerator times the numerator, and then we will multiply the denominator times the denominator. Okay, so that would be 4 times 5. Those are our numerators. We will multiply 4 times 5, and then we will multiply the denominator by the denominator. In this case, is 1 times 12. So now I'm going to multiply 4 times 5. 4 times 5 is equal to 20. 1 times 12 is equal to 12. And now I'm going to simplify. So I'm going to simplify by dividing both the numerator and denominator by the same number. So here we see 20 divided by what number? So I need to find what is divisible, like how what can I divide both numerator and denominator? One key is remember the divisibility rule. When I say divisibility rule, it means that if both numbers are even, okay, that means that they end with 0, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. That means that I can divide both by 2 for sure, right? But there might be, there's also a chance that I can divide, by a bigger number, right? In this case, I know that 20 is a multiple of 4, and 12 is a multiple of 4 as well, right? So I can divide this by 4, and I can divide the 12 by 4 as well. So for this, you really need to know your times tables. It's very important that you know them. If you divide by 2, then you would just have to simplify over and over until you have the simplest form. So in this case, I'm dividing by 4. 20 divided by 4 is 5. And 12 divided by 4 is 3. So it's 5/3. See, now it's simpler. It's smaller. And it's equal to the same thing. Okay, so it's 5/3. But I cannot just stop there. You see, my numerator is bigger than my denominator. So I need to rewrite this as a mixed number. Okay, mixed number means that I will take out a whole number. So to do that, I can divide 5 by 3. This is one way to do it. So if I divide, how many times does the 3 fit into the 5? 1 time. So then I multiply 1 times 3 is 3, and I subtract. So this is my remainder, 2. But because I'm dealing with fractions, I'm going to write it as a fraction. So it's 1, and then I put my remainder in the numerator, and then I write my divisor in my denominator. Okay, and so it's 1 and 2/3. Another way that you could look at it is you look at the denominator, you say how many times does the denominator fit into the numerator? So 3 fits into 5 1 time. And then what do I have left? So I will subtract the 3 from 5. And then I have like 2 left over. So that means that it's 2/3. So as a mixed number, 5/3 is equal to 1 and 2/3. So 4 times 5/12 is equal to 5/3, or 1 2/3. Okay. And that is the final answer for this one. All right, so now I'm going to do a couple more examples, but I want to now show you also how to cross multiply. I'm going to write this on top so you can see it. Not cross multiply, cross simplify. Simplify. See. Cross simplify. So when I cross simplify, it means that I'm actually going to simplify some of these numbers before I even multiply across. Before I multiply the numerator with the numerator. And because sometimes I can't easily find, because the numbers are smaller, I can easily spot, numbers that I can, simplify before I multiply them and get an even bigger number. Let's see. For example, here we have number 1. Remember, if I have a whole number, I will write it as a fraction by putting a denominator 1. So in this case, I have 6, and the denominator is 1. And I'm multiplying by 3/8. Remember, when I multiply fractions, I multiply the numerator times the numerator and the denominator times the denominator. Now, here's where I want to cross simplify. When I cross simplify, I look at the numbers going across, just like an X. For example, I look at the 6 and I look at the 8. And I think, can I simplify these numbers? Can I divide by the same number so that I can make them smaller? So this is something that it'll just make it easier so that you don't get a huge number. We're going to try it both ways. Let's do this normally, regularly. If you don't cross simplify, you won't get it wrong. I won't penalize you or anything. But this is something that could be useful. So in this case, I'm gonna do it the normal way, okay? I will multiply the numerator times the numerator right away, and the denominator times the denominator. So 6 times 3 is equal to 18. And then 1 times 8 is equal to 8. As you can see, I have 18 over 8, and this number is big, and it's a number that I will have to simplify because 18 and 8 are even numbers, right? They both end in either 0, 2, 4, 6, 8. So that means that I can definitely divide both the numerator and the denominator. I can divide it by 2. I can divide both by 2. So when I do that, I get 18 divided by 2, which is 9. I'm trying to get into the other one. And 8 divided by 2 is equal to 4. So there I got 9/4. And now I want to rewrite this as a mixed number, okay? But before we do that, let me show you how that will look if we cross simplified, okay? So I'm going to rewrite here 6 over 1 times, so I'm just going to show you another way to do this, times 3, oops, I forget that I cannot click tab here. And then I'm going to write 3 over 8. Oops. Okay. 3. Okay, I'm turning it all the way. Oh my God. Okay, so that's not cool. It's not going to work. Let's say 3. Nope. Okay, so I'll just put them separately, I guess. 6 times 3 over 8. Okay, so here I have my numbers again, okay? 6 over 1 times 3/8. So when we do the strategy of cross simplify, what I'm going to do is that before I multiply the numerator times the numerator, I'm going to look to see if I can simplify numbers that are across or diagonally across. And so in this case, I will be looking at 6 and 8. Can I divide both of these numbers by a common number? And see, these are even numbers. So that means that I can divide by 2. So what is 6 divided by 2? It is 3. So I'm going to divide 6 by 2. and I'm going to write 3 here. And then 8 divided by 2 is equal to 4. And now I'm going to multiply across, not with my reduced numbers, now that I already simplified across. So I can simplify going across like this and the opposite direction, just like it, kind of like an X. So in this case, I multiply 3 times 3 is equal to 9. And then 1 times 4 is equal to 4. So you see, I got the same answer. I just simplified before I multiplied. And here on the first example, I multiplied first and then simplified. But for me, it would be easier to simplify 6 and 8 rather than to simplify 18 over 8. Now, remember that this is a fraction greater than 1, so we need to rewrite it as a mixed number. So you could either, think about it as 9 divided by 4, or you can say, how many times does the 4 fit into the 9? Well, let's go 4. We kind of think of our multiples. 4, 8. 8 is smaller than 9, so that means that I can fit 2 4s. So that means that I make 2 whole numbers, okay? And so that will leave me with 1 left over, and that will go over 4, okay? Again, if you did the division like this, then I know that 4 goes into 9 2 times. 2 times 4 is 8, and then I subtract. My leftover, okay, my remainder, will be written as a fraction by putting the divisor as a denominator. So it's 2 and 1/4. That would be my mixed number, okay? And that would be the final answer. Okay, let's do another problem. Let's do number 2. I'm going to use a different color pencil so you don't get confused with what I had already written out there. So in here, let's see, let's pick green. Okay, so here we have 3 8s times 8 9s. I'm going to write here the way that what it would be if I just cross multiply. If I multiply numerator times the numerator and denominator times the denominator, and then I'm going to show you what it would be if I cross simplify before I multiply. Okay, so remember, I will multiply, okay, in this case, let me write it out. I'm going to multiply the numerator, which is 3, times the numerator of the second factor, and I will multiply the denominator of the first factor times the denominator of the second factor. Okay, and that is equal to 3 times 8 is equal to 24. And let me move it a little bit so you can see that clearly. And then 8 times 9 is equal to 72. As you can see, this number is way bigger. And I know I'm going to have to simplify just because I know that 24 is even number and 72 is also an even number. And it gets a little harder, to do that. Let me do this font a little bit smaller so I can make it fit here. Wait, that is already 18. Go down to 16. See, that works better. Okay, so let me go ahead and we're going to go ahead and reduce it. Okay, so, oops. So if I divide by 2, that means I'm splitting 24 in half. The half of, because I'm dividing by 2, I'm going to divide by 2 both the numerator and denominator. The half of 24 is 12. And so that would be over, I'm going to just put this in the bottom so you can see that clearly. And then 72 and half, okay, you can use mental math or you can actually divide it on the side. But 72, I know that 70, okay, I'm going to start with 70. Half of 70 is 35. And then half of 2 is 1. So 35 plus 1 is 36. I did this mentally. That's equal to 36. But it's, as you can see, 12 over 36 is still an even number. Both of them are even. That means that I can simplify that even more. So I'm going to go ahead and divide. I just noticed that 36 is a multiple of 12. Okay, so I'm going to divide both the numerator and denominator by 12. 12 divided by 12 is equal to 1. And 36 divided by 12 is 3 because I know that 12 times 3 is 36. So my final answer is actually 1/3. And if this looks confusing, it might be because you really guys need to practice your times table. So please go back to extra math if you need to. So I basically am dividing, I'm simplifying. I mean, means that I'm reducing it, dividing the numerator and denominator by the same digit. Now, let me show you what happens when you cross simplify. Let me show you how easier this gets. So I'm going to go ahead and rewrite my fractions here. I'm actually going to make it bigger now because you will see how it's easier. And let's change color so that you can differentiate from the ones I'm working on. Okay, so I'm going to rewrite 3/8 times 8/9. That's where it gets a little tricky here. I don't know how to. So I'll just rewrite it. Okay, so I have 3/8. I'm doing the same problem, but now I'm going to show you what happens when you cross multiply. I mean, cross simplify. My apologies. So when I cross multiply, you see that I'm going to reduce this going diagonally. So I'm going to simplify my 8. I know that I have 2 8s here. I love these because I know that I can divide both of these 8 by 8. So what is 8 divided by 8? It is 1. And I have to do it on both of them, okay? But I need to divide both by the same number. So there, I already, I cross simplify. Now I'm going to look at the opposite side, 3 and 9, okay? Now I know that 9 is a multiple of 3. So I can definitely divide 9 by 3 and 3 by 3. So if I divide 3 by 3, that is equal to 1. If I divide 9 by 3, that is equal to 3, right? 9 divided by 3 is equal to 3. So now after I do that, then I multiply, my simplified fraction. So now I multiply 1 times 1. 1 times 1 is equal to 1. And 1 times 3 is equal to 3. See how I got the same answer? But it was much easier when I cross simplified. Okay, we will continue practicing this. Like I said, I will not penalize you for doing it the top way instead, but you have to simply put it in its simplest form. So the second strategy will make it easier in that sense. All right, see you in class.